Okay, we're back.
We
Here
live?
we- Hey, there you are.
Are we live?
We are live.
Oh
I'm here
shit.
with Kurt Ballou.
Yeah, that those bathroom breaks are crucial, right?
Yeah, a lot of seltzer today.
I did a couple of of the what the heck's it called? Company in Seattle? Spacing right now. Creative Live. Some like tutorial things on their platform, and just the bladder endurance was
Yeah,
insane because I one of the worst things about touring for me is my tiny bladder, and I'm just constantly in pain on van rides. Um,
I'm with you. I'm right
and
there
I
with
was
you.
well,
My
that's why you
wife
don't really tour, huh?
my wife and friends will attest to that. When I do
Yeah.
tour, I'm not used to having to hold it, so it becomes quite an issue. Actually, I'm fortunate to have a bathroom next to me all the time. So, yep, hard realities, man. That's what we're here to talk about. So, Kurt Ballou, the man who needs very little introduction from me, guitarist of Converge, God City Studios, God City Instruments, the pedals, everything. One of my favorite
Good
artists
stuff.
personally, one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite producers. It's actually an
Thank you.
honor to have
Appreciate
you
it.
here.
Oh, I
And
appreciate it.
now,
Thank you.
and recently
You're
we've
one of my favorites too.
oh, so sweet. Stop it. I'm
No, you're
blushing.
killing it right now, man.
Yeah, well, we've recently become friends because we have a shared struggle of working with bands for a living. So I'm sure there's plenty we could talk about there. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess first off, like, how has life been with you? You know, were you affected by the COVID pandemic? Like, I know we were a bit. You know, I've talked to a few producers who had some pretty tough times dealing with it with clients canceling and stuff. Like, how have you been able to like weather things?
Yeah. Oh, like in terms of like the financials and stuff. I mean, it's
Just
it's
like
tough.
business as usual, in general.
Well, about like 50% of my work is just remote mixing anyway. Um, I'd say at this point, I maybe do like 10 recordings a year or so, and then another like 30 or so mix only projects. So like time wise, it ends up being like more projects that I'm working on mixing, but or mixing only, but about probably 50-50 time wise. So like my day to day hasn't really changed all that much. And my girlfriend's at home with our kids, like either way. So their lives haven't really changed all that much either. So the day to day hasn't been that different for me. And there's still stuff that had been recorded that needed to be mixed. And then I was also like working on recording some of my own stuff that's not ready to announce yet. So I definitely have had no shortage of work. And actually, like maybe this has been the same for you, but I feel like I've been doing a little bit more work. So now, like, more portions of projects are getting recorded at home, less portions are getting recorded in the studio. So there's more like audio first aid to be done, a lot more like work with drum programming and drum samples than I usually do. I don't usually do very much in the way of reamping, but that's become necessary. Been doing a lot of like, hand holding of people recording themselves at home for the first time, or people who don't have a ton of experience doing that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I'm actually happy to see you easily adapt to the shift in the recording climates, because you come from a very analog based
yeah,
punk style, put the band in the room, capture it thing. And I kind of came up with, still that approach and that
yeah,
aesthetic, but with like a little more on the digital side. And um, it's cool to see you taking the dive into some of that stuff, because I think it'll make you more valuable and flexible and stuff in the
yeah.
future too.
Well, I started recording in like '95, and like back then there was like analog was really the only choice. Like there were ADATs, and there was just starting to be like a little bit of hard disk recording, but you weren't going to do like full multi-track sessions on a hard disk yet. And I had some bad experience with recording with other people where like ADATs and D88s got chewed. So I just went into analog because that was like the only option for me.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, it was like the tail end of, oh, this is a computer, we're going to use
yeah,
this now, where nothing worked and everything
yeah.
slow and horrible. And
But
it
like
was
I'm like actively trying not to be a luddite. Like I'm trying to learn new technologies and trying not to like, it's real easy for me to be like, no, dude, like I got all these amps, like why would I ever use modeling or like that kind of stuff. But like, I try not to be like that. I try, cause I remember what it felt like to be that kid that, you know, people look down on me for whatever, you know, my experience was not being as real or as whatever their experience was prior to me coming along. So I try not to like be judgmental towards new technologies. It's still, you know, it's still engineering, like whether it's like designing a circuit or writing code, it's still engineering. It's still like using brain power to create tools to be creative with, regardless of what those tools are. So still think it's awesome. And I love that people are like really pushing digital technology forward so far right now. It's pretty amazing. And it's been really super helpful. Like, you know, like for one, maybe not the first time ever, but like, I haven't done much of this kind of approach where like I just recorded a record where we did guitars first. And because we're still waiting to record the drums.
Sure.
And we're still waiting to record the vocals. You know, like drums and vocals are probably the most difficult or the most risky thing to do in time of COVID. Just because it's like such a, you know, physical instrument. With vocals, you're spraying saliva into the air, you know? So we like programmed all the drums and tracked guitars and some of the bass and stuff, and working on the keyboards, and like, you know, we'll eventually, when things are a little bit less crazy, we'll do some drums and some vocals and get this project done.
That's cool. It's a good approach. I take that approach. There's a variety of benefits to it too, especially if you're working with an artist who's still fleshing out music. You know, if you're quick enough on your feet to get drum programming together, you work off their demos, you can start earlier. You can make arrangement changes through the whole course of making a record. So as you're writing a part, changing a part, working on a new vocal, you're not committed fully to your drums, which usually happen first. And yeah, I've gotten like really awesome results with that too.
Yeah, because you can be like, oh, you know what? This riff should be on the hi-hat, not on the ride. Or like this should be 2 BPM faster. Or like there's so many things you can do. However, the immediacy of like a bunch of people in a room together where you can just like go try an idea, like I feel like that you can like, if every member of the band has an idea and you want to try, you can try all 4 of those ideas in like 4 minutes and decide that feels good or that doesn't. If you're programming all that stuff, it might be half an hour, might be an hour, might be 2 hours. And if you're working remotely, then like all of the different people got to chime in with their parts. If you can't just like elasticum or whatever to get them to fit in. So it does slow things down, but the opportunities to make changes at any point in the process is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. My favorite experiences are when the band's just on fire and everyone's in the room and everyone can communicate and throw ideas at each other around the same time, and it kind of you get the sum of all the parts and the best result.
So are you doing tracking sessions still?
Right now, no. I'm doing some build out stuff. I've been pretty full on with this, but I'm gonna get into mixing, you know, for the next couple of weeks. I did move some records just to prevent any issues, because around here it was pretty wild. I didn't know if people would even be able to travel and stuff. So we canceled a couple months of work, moved it to the fall, and now I'm mixing and working on other stuff. Fortunately, it freed me up time to do this, because this took a minute, and I'm glad you know, the stars aligned. So I was like, hey, you know what? I have time. Let's fucking do this, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. So I had a couple things for you. I wanted to talk to you about this because I see this with bands a lot in our world, the idea of like competition versus community. I don't know how you feel, but our names come up a lot with the same bands. We've worked with a lot of the same bands.
Yeah. And, I mean, we're technically competitors, but I think of it more like colleagues, you know?
Yeah, and so do I. And sometimes bands don't. And I think I don't like that it polarizes people. And I've had bands in the middle of, you know, conversations between me and other producers, like sort of like pushing us away from each other and being sort of negative towards, you know, towards me or another producer. But whenever anybody talks about you, I'm always, you know, over the moon. And any record you do, even if it's a band I wanted to do, I mean, most of the records you do are bands I would love to record, but I'm happy that you do them because I like what I hear, you know, at the end of the day. And I don't know, community is something that's been thrown around a lot on this show. already. This, and we've discussed how working together makes a better result than trying to do something on your own. So I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to talk about on that, or
Yeah, it is interesting. Like sometimes bands will pit engineers against each other over price or things like that, and everybody wants to feel like they're the best. Like there's definitely, like, if there wasn't like any ego involved in making music, like I don't think much would get done. Like you want to be the best, like you want to make the awesomest, most like crushing record. You want to play double bass faster than anybody. You just want to, like, everyone involved in music is passionate about the music, and like for them to feel, I don't know, it just feels good to like feel like you did a great job, not like an adequate job. So I understand why there's a bit of like competition. That's something I put on myself, but I use that as fuel to drive myself to be better.
Sure.
I'm emotional on every single record that I do. Like the results, and it's hard for me to listen to other music, and it's hard for me to listen back to the work that I've done, because like I invariably like listen back to a record that I did 10 years ago, and I'll think one of two things: either like, this is horrible, like what was I thinking, I'm so much better now, or this is amazing, I suck now, what am I doing, why did I get so much worse? Or then I like put on a record that you did for a band that I recorded, I'm like, why the hell is this so much better than what I did? Or like whatever. It's always something like really emotional. So like, it's kind of the same. It's sort of like a cousin of don't read the comments. Like I don't listen back to what I've done too often, because I always end up getting really emotional about it.
Sure. I agree. Like I do that. I feel that self-imposed pressure because I have it all the time. And
yeah, but that's how you get better.
Sure. And I'm happy.
I'm happy. Maintain level of quality too.
For me, I'm happy to hear awesome records because I think it presents challenges for me, like you'll do a mix, or I'll hear somebody else do a record, and I like that it makes me sweat. I like that I have to sit there and go, God damn it. Like this is fucking sick. I have to, all right, let me start over. Hold on. Like I need that too, because I think, whatever you're doing, if it's making records or writing music or being in a band or whatever your job is in life, like we're fortunate enough that we get to control our destinies. And if we put our own work in the right way, we get the results that, give us this platform to make music for a career, How
much do you reference while you're mixing?
I do like, I go like top down. I get something where I'm like, I think this sounds pretty good. And then I have like, depending on what kind of artist I'm working with, I'll put a few songs together where I'm like, let me just check and make sure that, in the vein of this stuff, as far as like, is there enough bass? Is it punchy? Like I'll have a little, I'll jam on it, go back and forth, see what jumps out at me. And I do that like initially, and then I kind of just like tuck it away. I used to obsess, like, and it was, for me, I think it was a mistake. I would switch back and forth. I would hyper analyze what's the symbol on this record. Oh, this. And I would get like in this bubble.
You match like a guitar break or something.
Where I was like, it was a point of diminishing returns where I was like, the work that I'm doing isn't productive. I'm chasing stuff, but I have different source files. I have a different band in front of me. Everything's different, so it's like a lot of those subjective opinions on and little production moves. I've learned to like, just make sure you're competitively like where you're supposed to be, and then go do your own thing. And I think my mixing improved drastically when I actually just stopped kind of giving as much of a shit. And then, of course, at the end, I make sure I didn't blow it. But
that's the part that I need to learn to avoid, because when I get to the end, then I start second guessing everything, because I don't have that like that early like thing where I can react to what's going on when I don't know the song, the ins and outs of the song all that well yet. Like once I like really know it, I've been working on it for days or whatever, then I don't have that objectivity. Then it should just, at that point in the mix, I want to just be doing like the little fine tweaks that the artist tells me, like bring up the solo a little bit or add some reverb. I don't want to be like fucking with the bass sound at that point. But then if I throw in a reference at the end, it can just like screw up my whole world, which is what happened to me yesterday. Like my studio, I've been like, it's basically the only place I listen to music in. I've been listening to music there every day in that room for almost 20 years. I've been listening to music on those monitors for probably 15, and I've been mixing on that console for like 10. So really, like the system I have right now, it's 10 years of like every day, same setup.
Sure.
At least in terms of like, my mixing environment. And so I barely reference anymore. But like the mix that I was working on yesterday, I threw in a reference at the very end, and it totally fucked me up. And then we ended up rolling the mix back to like deciding that the final mix was like 2 revisions earlier than the last mix that I did.
Yeah,
just because I screwed myself up.
Tomorrow you might catch it in an hour and be like, "Oh, just kicks ass." Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it sucks.
Yeah.
So, all right, we don't have a ton of time.
Yeah.
I've got a lightning round question you with some stuff because the people need to know.
Yeah,
all right, Desert Island, you get 1 HM2 pedal. Which one you taking?
Oh, the GOAT. It just happened yesterday. I don't know. I'm probably not supposed to announce it yet, but Patrick kind of already hinted at it. So like, there's going to be a more pedal board friendly version of the Chaotic Evil Med. Sorry, Patrick, if you're watching. And it's definitely the greatest of all time. And I did a big shoot yesterday. I did some final value tweaks, and this one's only 8 knobs, and it's fucking awesome.
I did.
So that's it for me, because I never really liked the distortion character of the HM2. So this is like sort of like a rat and a tube screamer and a blender kind of distortion pedal. It actually cleans up super well. And then the HM2 EQ with some frequency controls. Well, it's weird. Like they're gyrator EQ, so there's not actually, like, it's not a parametric, so you can't actually control frequency and bandwidth completely independently.
Right.
But I'm faking it enough that where it's just not like, it's not constant Q as you adjust frequency, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like that you've tweaked the distortion side of it, because it's all about the EQ anyway. And that was just the drawback of the pedal. But yeah, I'm excited for the Chaotic Evil Net. I got one on the way whenever those get made. So
yeah, it'll sound essentially the same. That just has 3 more controls.
Appreciate that. Okay. And most non-traditional recording technique you use frequently? I got asked that one once, and I was like, "Oh shit!" But it, made me think. So
non-traditional recording technique. I don't know. Maybe reamping snares.
Reamping snares is cool.
That's really non-traditional, right? Yeah, like put a speaker on top of a snare drum and blast it into the snare. I do that a lot. Like when people, for some reason, I'm on a tear right now where every band that I'm mixing has either tuned their snare drum like with a power drill, like as high as it'll possibly go.
Yeah, that's my world too. I know you're
barely on, like just finger tight. Like it's one or the other. It's nothing in the middle. So
couldn't just be normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So reamping a snare, like, it's just useful for a little bit of tone and some like bottom snare action. But I haven't actually done that lately, but I've wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's
next week I'm gonna hit you up and we're gonna nerd out about that a little bit. And okay, one more. Your personal favorite Converge song of all time?
Oh, that's tough. I'm not like a guy who has favorite anythings. Like I don't have a favorite.
There's too many flavors, but if you had to represent, if one song represents your band, what is it?
Oh, one song represents my band?
Or the one song you're the most proud of?
Oh, god damn.
I know.
I'm just gonna go Concubine. That's the first song on Jane Doe, and that's really like the record that made things happen for us. So and that's the first song on that record, and I still love that song. We still play it almost every show, and it's a great song in my opinion. And it set the tone for the record that set the tone for the rest of the band.
It's a classic. I appreciate that you can look to your past Converge releases, because obviously you've matured so much as a musician, and still appreciate that people like.
Yeah, my favorite record is always going to be like the newest record, but
sure.
But yeah, starting at Jane Doe, I'm totally okay with anyone who says that that's their favorite, because I'm proud of that record.
There you go. That's a spirit.
Starting there. Part of everything we've done from there on.
All right. Well, we didn't talk politics, and I feel like I should address that we had a conversation earlier, and the idea that we had was maybe we could do what we do, draw some people to this donation, and kind of stay out of the way and let some more important voices, I wouldn't say more important, but more qualified voices, exercise their opinions on here. So I appreciate that, even though you're not really that outspoken of a guy when it comes to these kind of forum things, that you did take a second to come on here and chat. You're one of my favorite producers in the world. I feel like I should announce this giveaway real quick.
But can I just say, I'm not adverse to talking politics. It's just like, I feel like, I'm a middle-aged straight white guy who lives in the suburbs. Like there's just more important voices to listen to. And I feel like my overall sort of approach to taking in information over the past, or my approach to being on the internet in the past few years has really changed. And I feel like it's just like super important for people from my demographic to listen more and talk less. Like the things that I put out into the world, whether it's music or politics or opinions or anything, I really want it to just I want it to be of value. And I feel like I can recommend microphones, and I can, talk about, guitar pedals and stuff like that, and provide a lot of value there. And I can build guitars, and there's value there. And there's value in what I do politically too, but I feel like my role is more of a support role. Like I'm trying to contribute by doing things like this. I'm trying to contribute by where I donate money, by the conversations I have with, fortunately, there's not a lot of people in my immediate world that struggle with these concepts, but I am trying to help wherever I can, whenever I encounter something, in my family or my friend group where people need to have a little more perspective on things. So
Absolutely.
That's what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to stay out of the way, like you said, of the louder voices. And I think it's also important, like there's so many problems in the world right now, and everybody has issues that are super important to them, and it's important not to shame people if the issues that are like the most important to you are not the things that are being heard the loudest.
Absolutely.
Like for me, like animal rights is super important, and COVID can essentially be attributed to factory farming. And if we stop treating animals like shit, then we're much less likely to fall subject to these infectious viruses. Like we do, and it was going to continue to happen if we don't stop treating animals like shit. So that's an important issue to me.
Yep, you are preaching to the choir here. But thank you, man. You and Converge have always been on the right side of history with this stuff, and I know in the background you and the band are doing plenty to support causes too. So
yeah, we got more stuff happening.
I appreciate you and your continued efforts, and you're always an inspiration for me. Kurt Ballou, God City Instruments giveaway. You can win an SBD Fuzz Pedal Proof. I'll let you do the explaining. You're the genius behind this. Yeah,
so this is actually, when I got bit by the pedal building bug a few years ago, this is actually the first thing that I definitely had some help by Nick from Dunwich Amps and John Snyder from Electronic Audio Experiments, and Scott DeBachler from S&K. But this is kind of like my own design. It's been through a bunch of revisions, and this is the latest revision of that. It's a proof that I built just to make sure that it worked. The enclosure manufacturer that I use is still just kind of starting to get the doors open again, so I don't have an ETA for when a run of these things is going to be available. But this one's a proof that's available, that's hand signed, and I think it's really awesome sounding articulate fuzz pedal based on the Vox Super Beetle distortion circuit.
Oh yeah, that's going to kick ass. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate this donation. This is really awesome. Soundring.live, $10 donation gets you entered into the charity raffle. You have a shot at winning this, about 100 something other prizes. Kurt, always a pleasure, man. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is great. I really hope you guys raise a lot of money for this cause. I'm actually an ACLU member, so I appreciate it.
There you go. A card-carrying member. I appreciate you, Kurt.
I have the card in my wallet.
Cool, man. We'll talk soon, buddy.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Have a good one. Kurt Ballou, one of my favorites. What a guy. All right. I want to keep on schedule. I'm jumping right into Todd Jones, the man behind Nails. Give me 1 second, everybody.